All right, I want to continue our section where we are adding and subtracting the rational expressions. We've done like denominators. We have gone through and talked about how to find a least common denominator and how to change our fractions to equivalent fractions using the least common denominator. So now that's going to lead us into adding and subtracting when we have unlike denominators. So we're going to have to find an LCD. And in order to do that, you're going to have to factor the denominator. We're going to have to do that every time. So we'll find the LCD, then we're going to rewrite into our equivalent expressions, and then we're going to add or subtract the numerators because now we will have an LCD as the denominator. And then at the very end, you might be able to factor the numerator once you collect your like terms and might be able to simplify it. That doesn't happen real often, but it could happen every so often. So you'll see on their example, they've got 4 over y squared minus 3y plus 2 minus 6 over y squared minus 1. So y squared minus 3y plus 2 then factors into your y minus 1, y minus 2. Y squared minus 1 is the difference of two squares, so that's y plus 1, y minus 1. And so they have chosen their LCD, y minus 1. Got to have a y minus 2 in there, and then you have to have this y plus 1 that's missing from this second denominator. Now, my next step is going to be a little bit different from theirs. I'm going to write it out to the side. What I like to do is just make a nice big fraction with my LCD on the bottom. So I would put y minus 1, y plus 1, and y minus 2. And I would just make one nice long LCD. And then what I do is I look at my old fraction to my new fraction and I ask myself what is missing from this denominator. Well, from y minus 1 to y minus 2, I'm missing the y plus 1. So that means that I'm going to have to multiply 4 times y plus 1. So this is just organized a little bit differently than the way they do it. It saves a little bit of room and it goes ahead and it puts the two fractions together. Now in between these two fractions was a minus sign, so I'm going to carry that over. Then I'm looking at below the 6. I've got a y minus 1 and a y plus 1. So over here in my new denominator, I'm missing the y minus 2. So the 6 is going to have to get multiplied by y minus 2. So whatever is missing from the old denominator, that's what you'll multiply your numerator by. So 6 times y minus 2. Now we're going to simplify. We're going to distribute the 4 through that parentheses and have 4y plus 4. We're going to distribute a negative 6 through this parentheses. Don't forget that negative in front. So negative 6y plus 12 over our big long denominator. And these are going to be long problems. They're not going to be short little simple problems. They're going to take some time. So then let's combine like terms. 4y minus 6y would give me negative 2y. And a 4 plus a 12 would give me 16 over my denominator. My pen is acting kind of funny today. Now, at this point, you try to factor to see if you can cancel anything from the numerator to the denominator. And you can see when they factor the negative 2 out, they get a y minus 8 in parentheses, and there's no matching parentheses on the top or the bottom. So you can put either answer. You could leave it with the negative 2y plus 16, or you could go ahead and factor that out. You need to try and factor it out most of the time just to see if you might be able to cancel something. But again, that is not going to happen very often. Okay, let's look down here at this number 10. First of all, I've got to decide what my LCD is. And when you're writing on your paper and you're writing problems that you're working on homework, I would write the problem on your scratch work and then write LCD just like it's written underneath here. Because the key is to find that first. You don't need to try and do a lot of these in your head. You need to write everything down, and it's very helpful. X minus 2 is already factored. X squared minus 4 would be x plus 2 and x minus 2. All right, so I've got an x minus 2. That needs to be in my LCD. I have an x plus 2 and an x minus 2 in that second one, so I'm missing the x plus 2. I've got to include that. And then when I look at my last denominator, I've already got the x plus 2 in here. So here's my LCD. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put my LCD on the bottom. Now I'm going to go back up to my old fractions. Underneath the 8, there's an x minus 2. To the new denominator, I've got both of these, so I'm missing the x plus 2. So the 8 is going to get multiplied times x plus 2. So 8 times x plus 2. Then we have a plus. And underneath the x minus 6, I've got both of the factors. So I don't have to multiply anything times the x minus 6. I'm just going to rewrite it, x minus 6. I don't have to really put it in parentheses because there was a plus in front of there. If there had been a minus in front of that fraction, I would have put this in parentheses and had to distribute a -1. All right, last fraction, x plus 2 to the new one, I'm missing the x minus 2. So 2 is going to have to get multiplied times x minus 2. That's a plus 2. And then we're going to distribute. So I'm going to have an 8x plus a 16 plus another x minus a 6 plus a 2x minus 4 all over x minus 2, x plus 2. And then we're going to combine like terms. I have an 8x, I have another 1x and a 2x. 8 and 1 is 9, plus 2 more would be 11. And then I've got 16 minus 6, that'd be 10, minus another 4 would be a positive 6 over x minus 2, x plus 2. Okay, so now I'm going to look at 11x minus 6. Can I take out a greatest common factor from both of those terms? No, I cannot. So that means that I'm done. That is my final answer. Okay, let's look on the next page. Okay, here's some that look maybe a little bit more involved. We got to do a little bit more factoring. So I'm going to factor underneath. I need to factor b squared minus 7b plus 10. So factors of 10 that add up to a -7 would be minus 2 and a minus 5. And then b squared plus 3b minus 40. Factors of -40 that add up to a positive 3 would be a positive 8 and a minus 5. Okay, so let's decide what my LCD is going to be. For my LCD, I'm going to write down whatever's in my first denominator, no matter what it is, because I know both of those have to be in there. And then I'm going to look at my second denominator, see if I've got everything. I don't have a b plus 8 in this denominator, so I'm going to add a b plus 8. I've already got the b plus 5 in, or b minus 5 in there. So here's my LCD. So I'm going to come over here. I'll put my LCD in the bottom. B minus 2, B minus 5, B plus 8. So on this one, I've got expressions in the numerator, so I'm going to have a little bit more to have to deal with when I start simplifying that numerator. But I'm going to look at B minus 2, B minus 5. I'm missing a B plus 8, so I'm going to have to multiply the numerator times a B plus 8. So we'll have to FOIL that in a second. And then there's a plus sign in between those two fractions. And then from the second fraction, I've got a b plus 8 and a b minus 5. I'm missing the b minus 2. So this one's going to have to get multiplied times b minus 2. So this is going to be 2b plus 7 times a b minus 2. Now, hopefully you remember that when we multiply out two binomials, we have to FOIL them. So that's going to give me a b squared plus an 8b minus a 3b minus 24. That's the first FOIL one. And then, because remember you do first, outer, inner, last. I didn't draw all the lines because it's just getting too busy on the paper, but first, outer, inner, last. So on this one, 2b times b, that's going to be a 2b squared. 2b times negative 2 is a negative 4b. 7 times b is a plus 7b. 7 times a negative 2 is minus 14. All of that's over b minus 2, b minus 5, b plus 8. So let's see what we can combine. I've got a b squared and a 2b squared. That's going to give me 3b squared. 8b minus 3b would be 5b. Minus another 4b would be 1b. Plus 7 is going to give me, I believe, 8b in all. So plus 8b. And then negative 24 minus 14 is a negative 38. All over b minus 2, b minus 5, b plus 8. Now, it would be really nice to factor the 3b squared minus 38. But if you take 3 times a negative 38, you're going to get, my calculator, 3 times negative 38 is going to give me negative 114. I don't believe there's any factors of negative 114 that are going to give me an 8. So this will be my final answer. Now you won't have a lot on homework where you have to FOIL like we had to in this numerator, but you may have a few, so you need to be ready to try and do that. All right. And be sure that as you're going through these videos, if you have questions, you either message me, or I've put on the announcements how you can text me. You can post something in the discussion. You can email me. There's lots of ways to get in touch with me. All right, let's look at the next one. This is a subtraction one, so I'm going to have to factor. First thing I do automatically is just factor denominators. So factors of negative or positive 6 that add up to a negative 5 would be negative 3 and a negative 2. And then factors of 8 that add up to a negative 6 would be negative 4 and negative 2. So my LCD, I'm going to write down the first denominator, x minus 3, x minus 2, and then I'm missing this x minus 4 that's in that second denominator, so that's going to go right there. All right, so there is my LCD. I'm going to try and draw a little line so we can kind of see the space. So I'm going to make my LCD. It's going to be x minus 3, x minus 2, and an x minus 4. And then we're going to see what's missing. From the old denominator, I've got x minus 3, x minus 2, missing that x minus 4. So 4x is going to have to get multiplied by x minus 4. And then there's a minus sign, don't forget that. And then so the 16 underneath it, I've got x minus 4, x minus 2. I'm missing this x minus 3. So 16 is going to have to get multiplied times x minus 3. We'll try and condense this and write it out to the side. When I distribute, I'm going to have 4x squared. I'm going to have a minus 16x. I'm going to have another minus 16x. And then I'm going to have negative 16 times a negative 3 is going to give me positive 48. And that's over the x minus 3, x minus 2, and x minus 4. So let's combine our like terms. I'm going to have 4x squared minus 32x plus 48. Lots of writing. These are going to take up a bit of space, so be prepared with your notebook paper. These take a little bit of time and a little bit of space. Now on this one, I can see right away 4 goes into all 3 of those terms, so I'm going to take out a 4. And I'm going to have x squared minus 8x plus 12. Over my denominator. And then I'm going to look and see if I can factor x squared minus 8x plus 12. Are there factors of 12 that would add up to negative 8? Well, you could use negative 6 and negative 2. So that's going to factor into x minus 6, x minus 2, all over. So in this particular problem, we are going to be able to do some canceling, because I have an x minus 2 on top and an x minus 2 on the bottom. So those particular ones would cancel out. Now, none of the others will cancel out, because remember, in order to cancel, you have to have exactly matching parentheses. So our answer was going to be then 4 times x minus 6 over my x minus 3 and my x minus 4. That would be my final answer. All right, I'm going to try and squeeze this number 13 in here. Let's see if I can squeeze it in. Okay, if I factor the second or the third fraction, its denominator, factors of 16 that add up to a negative 10 would be negative 8 and negative 2. So you can see my LCD, I'm going to have the x minus 2 and an x minus 8. I don't have 3 this time in this denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put it down here underneath here. X minus 2, x minus 8. In the first fraction, I've got an x minus 2 missing the x minus 8. So I'm going to have 6 times x minus 8. And then I've got a subtraction sign in between them. Underneath the x, I'm missing the x minus 2. So I'm going to multiply x times x minus 2. And in the last one, I've got x squared plus 48. Well, underneath there, I've got both of the factors that are in my denominator, so I don't have to do anything to x squared plus 48. So let's clear our parentheses. That's going to give me 6x minus 48 minus x squared. Negative x times a negative 2 would be plus 2x, running out of room, plus x squared plus 48 all over x minus 2, x minus 8. Okay, let's see what we can combine. I've got a 6x and a 2x. I see right away I've got a minus x squared and a plus x squared. Those are going to cancel. So 6x plus 2x is going to give me 8x. And then I've got a negative 48 and a positive 48. Those are going to cancel. So really the only thing I have left on top is 8x. And then on the bottom I've got x minus 2 and x minus 8. And so that's how we continue to factor. Factor and then add and subtract. Okay, let's do this last one. This one is going to be odd because you'll see I've got a 4 minus 5x and a 5x minus 4. the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out a negative 1 from here, and I'm going to make that 5x minus 4. This is a really quirky one, and I don't think you're going to have one this tough in the homework, but we're going to do it anyway. I'm not going to spend time going through the factoring for 5x squared plus 16x minus 16. That's something we should have practiced with Amazing Method or AC Method. I'm just going to tell you that's 5x minus 4 and an x plus 4. So my LCD is going to be, I need to have the negative 1 that I took out. I need to have a 5x minus 4. And I need to have an x plus 4. Now, I took out that negative 1 so that these first two denominators would match. If you don't do that, it's going to be a really, really difficult problem to do. And these are difficult enough as they are. So I'm going to come over here so I can make sure I've got plenty of room. I'm going to put negative 1, 5x minus 4, and an x plus 4. Okay, from the first fraction, I am missing the x plus 4. So 8 is going to get multiplied times x plus 4. Then there's a minus sign. Underneath the 2, I'm missing a negative 1 and an x plus 4. So I'm going to take 2 times negative 1 times x plus 4. And under the last fraction, I've got both of the parentheses, but I'm missing the negative 1. So I'm going to take a negative 1 times the x plus 4 that's on top of that. Oh, that's an x minus 4 on top of that last fraction. All right, let's distribute. 8x plus 32. Okay, that's what I get when I distribute there. Negative 2 times a negative 1 gives me positive 2. So I'm going to distribute a positive 2 and get positive 2x plus 8. Okay, and then a negative 1 times that x, and the last one would be negative x, and a negative 1 times a negative 4 gives me positive 4. Then we're going to collect like terms. Just rewriting the denominator. All right, so we have 8x plus 2x, that'd be 10x, plus or minus an x would give me 9x in all. I've got 32 plus 8, that gives me 40, plus another 4 gives me 44 in all on top. And I'm not going to be able to simplify that numerator. 9 doesn't go into 44. So negative 1 over 5x minus 4, x plus 4 would be my final answer. These will probably be the most difficult problems that we do in this section, but once you get through this section, it's a little bit downhill. This section is going to take some time, so keep that in mind when you start working on these adding and subtractings in your homework. Be sure you email me with questions.